the Dallas Cowboys had no business playing against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. To call it a game would be generous. New Orleans had their way in just about every single capacity against the Cowboys and partied all throughout. Their first 6 possessions all resulted in touchdowns, and through the first 2 weeks of the season they look like one of the better offenses in the league. Questions are now circling the Cowboys like buzzards in the desert, as many are wondering if this team is truly a playoff contender or just in for a long year. Welcome to our stock report following Sunday's loss, which, as you can imagine, is not going to be a ton of fun. Stock down, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy was not the worst at his job on Sunday, but as the head coach, he has to lead the way here. The Cowboys were woefully unprepared, which is a reflection on the program he operated leading up to the home opener. We have known the Cowboys to be stout at home, but the last 2 games we have seen them play, there have been epic beatdowns. Consider that on Sunday, the Cowboys allowed 432 total yards and 44 points, a game like that literally did not happen in the entire Dan Quinn era. Does that mean that Quinn was the real master of everything? Hardly. But those are the kinds of questions that losing that kind of way will yield. What's more is that McCarthy inexcusably left his starters in this game in the fourth quarter, with things well already out of contention. It was during this time that Zach Martin exited with injury. Thankfully he returned. CeeDee Lamb took a hit to the head in the end zone and Dak Prescott was sacked again. What was the purpose? The plan? The goal? It is the middle of September. We all know that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Playing for pride or something is a fool's errand. What's more is that even if you were playing for some morale boost, Dallas turned the ball over on downs on both of their possessions with the starters to start the fourth quarter. Stock down, Mike Zimmer. As it relates to the new defensive play caller, it was hardly a great return to the home building for Mike Zimmer's career with the Dallas Cowboys. Is it fair to blame Mike Zimmer entirely? That would be an overreaction. But Clint Kubiak had the New Orleans Saints ready to go and was scheming players open constantly. Derek Carr threw for 243 yards on only 11 completions because of how many explosive plays they were able to generate. This matchup was lost in the game planning whether or not Zimmer knew it. The Cowboys continue to struggle with any semblance of Kyle Shanahan's offensive system, and in their first test to be ready for it with a new defensive coordinator they massively failed. Stock down, Micah Parsons. To be clear, Micah Parsons led the team in pressures. He had 3 and was the only player with multiple, but he has set such a high standard for himself that when something like this happens we turn to him and ask for more. Being the best means you have a different bar. The Cowboys had a pressure rate of 44.6% in Week 1, that dropped all the way to 35.3% against New Orleans. Going against an offensive scheme that is your kryptonite is one thing, but worsening it by not getting home or anywhere near home is only going to worsen it. We need to see more. Stock down, Eric Kendricks. Alvin Kamara had himself quite the day for the Saints, and Eric Kendricks spent a lot of it running after him. Kendricks was coming off of an amazing debut for the Cowboys, where he arguably should have won NFC Defensive Player of the Week, but on Sunday he looked overmatched in every sense of the word. There is still time to turn things around, but talented skill players out in space are going to have a constant advantage against this group. Stock down, Donovan Wilson. As noted previously, the Saints had explosive plays all day long. Donovan Wilson had a hand in that. Derek Carr found Rashid Shaheed for a 70-yard touchdown at one point in this game on a pass that traveled over 50 yards in the air. Donovan Wilson was unable to break it up. Derek Carr's 70-yard touchdown to Rashid Shaheed traveled 54.5 yards in the air against the Dallas Cowboys defense. As the last line of defense, Wilson has got to be someone who the Cowboys can depend on more. These types of plays obviously cannot happen. Stock down, Jalen Brooks. It appeared as if Brandon Cooks was going to score on an end around early in the game. He may have if Jalen Brooks had properly executed his block. What's more is that Dak Prescott threw an interception in the first half on a pass intended for Brooks where he slipped on the route. You cannot make these mistakes if you are going to be someone who the offense depends on to a significant degree. Stock down, Terence Steel. The Saints had an impressive day in just about every sense, and they seemed to go to the well over and over again on Terence Steele's side. He has to be someone who they can rely on more in pass protection, especially given his elder statesman status. Stock down, Dallas Cowboys front office. This was the game that many expected, where the decisions that the front office made over the course of the offseason reared their ugly head. Relying on Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks to a significant degree is asking for an awful lot on offense, a point exacerbated by Jake Ferguson's absence. Obviously, it goes without saying that many are wondering if Mike Zimmer was the proper choice at defensive coordinator, especially given that the only other reported options they considered were Rex Ryan and Ron Rivera. Winning in Week 1 helped delay the eventual reckoning that the first loss would bring for the front office. It is here now. Static stock, Dak Prescott. Was it Dak Prescott's best game? Absolutely not. But the offense did more than their fair share in the first half, but was in a serious hole because the defense had allowed 4 touchdowns in as many possessions at that point in time. Obviously, he pressed in the second half and everything fell all the way apart. Static stock, Tyler Guyton. Asking a rookie to dominate at left tackle right away is so unfair, and that Tyler Smith did it very recently made us believe it is somewhat normal. Tyler Guyton has learned that life in the NFL is very different in the Big 12, SEC, and is hopefully taking valuable lessons from all of these opportunities. But the Cowboys are a team we expect to contend now, and that learning will have to happen at an accelerated pace. Hopefully he has been taking proper notes. Carr found the end zone as a runner for the first time since Week 16 of the 2020 season with the Las Vegas Raiders to put the Saints up 35-13 in the second quarter, and he celebrated with an iconic dance. Carr's moves were that of a Michael Jackson-inspired dance. "I was a dancer in my day," Carr said. "Don't let the 4 kids rule you. I had to lure their mom in somehow. They see me all the time at weddings or birthdays. I'm always dancing. One time I hit the Michael Jackson, and they were like, 'Bro, you've got to do that one time when you score a touchdown.'" The Saints' offense has gotten off to a great start in 2024 with Carr under center, who's thrown 5 touchdown passes and only 1 interception on the season. Carr finished with 243 passing yards in the 44-19 win over the Cowboys, completing 11 of 16 passes for 2 touchdowns and an interception as well as the rushing touchdown.